because it's a little bit interesting. Okay, so we have, when we make int a equals 10, it's good to sort of develop this, what is actually going on in the JVM when I do something like this. Okay, so if I have something called a down here, and that's going to point to just a value 10. And again, this is me just using an abstraction. I'm really simplifying what's going on in the JVM. Okay, but then we have our class, and this is going to be tough to fit in because I didn't really give myself enough space. Integer 10. Okay. In my head, or at least my simplified world, what's happening is we have a reference B to some object. And again, I always represent objects as being some kind of circle, or hiding all the complexity in there, but we understand this is going to hold the value 10 inside an object. Okay. In the final statement was integer C equals 10. Okay, and here's an example where we actually, okay, even though the line of code looks like we're just saying something C to 10, we have this auto boxing happening where, okay, we actually want to represent this as a integer. So Java does a little bit of magic with this part. Okay, so I said the following. I said, is A equal to B? That was a question mark. And again, what's happening? Well, we're taking both of these values. It's going to end up being 10 equals 10. Okay, so this was true. And the same follows for, was A equals, whoops, that's not quite right, C. And we all worked out that was true as well, because it's going to be essentially the same thing. We're going to take 10 and the value 10 out of this object. The one thing I didn't talk about was, okay, well, what happens then if we have B equal to C? Okay, now we've learned a little bit about auto boxing and how Java can do magic things in the moment, but can we say let's find a new color for this, is B equal to C? Okay, true or false in the chat? You're just, it's like, feels like a trick. Yeah, there's a lot of traps in this lecture. Okay, we're getting a mix of true and false. And that's kind of, at this point in time, you might feel your reality is being pulled from underneath your feet because Java is clearly doing magic things in the background. Okay, so I will go ahead and just give the spoiler. This is false, okay? And this is part of where Java can sort of trick you a lot. Let me just say something about this. In this first case, we were comparing value to value, okay? And this was equality, okay? So the equals operator, which you understand it to mean, says, well, is 10 equal to 10? Of course it is, that is true, okay? But what's going on here is when B is equal to C, Java's doing something different. It becomes a different context because we have two reference types, okay? So there's no auto boxing to be done here. We have two objects, 1 and 2, and we're going to use the equals operator. Now in Java, because it's very confusing, whenever you do the equals operator of these two, what you're saying not is 10 equals to 10, but is B pointing to the same thing as C. Okay, and you can see in this example, well, B points to one object, C points to another object. So this is going to be false. They're pointing to different objects. Okay, and this is a classic example of how when you are jumping between reference types. So here we have the reference type here. That was meant to be a P, but I kind of missed. I have the primitive types here. What you think this operator means, equality, can change. It still means equality, but its interpretation changes because now we have two objects. And when we're asking ourselves the questions, do they point, they're references after all, to the same object. Okay. That's the question we're actually using. Okay. And just to prove that I'm not going completely crazy with this, if we have, was it B equals to C equals C, we get false. And again, we can see those lines again. B was the full constructor, and C was just the auto-boxed version where we passed it a value, and Java was clever enough to go that, okay, you probably want me to pass that as a value of the constructor of an integer. Okay, and we can see this really confusing situation. What looked like would be quite simple gets a little bit confusing. Okay, so I think it's really wise practice to get a sense of when you declare a variable, and these variables can be anything. They could be local variables, whatever, and then you're passing values, then Java will do slightly different things. Okay, so these three things, the auto boxing, which Java will do on your behalf automatically, then the use of the equals operator can lead to sort of confusions. Okay, so whenever, I guess the thing to take away here is whenever you're using reference types and the equals operator, have in the back of your mind, this, I could be walking into a trap. Okay, but it's, again, Java's doing very nice things for you. Okay, it would be a pain to always, every time we wanted to write an integer, have to write out this full line of code. Okay, the first or the third are probably the better ways we want to do it. Okay.